Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a while. I was actually traveling myself last week, so we had a little break. But welcome back to the Queen Exchange series, which is a series where we invite influencers and experts from across the industries to exchange ideas, business plans, or even thoughts which actually inspire others. So, today we have a really interesting topic which we are going to cover, which is on promoting gender equality in the workplace. And for that, we have Nishtha Anand, who is a TEDx speaker, also the author of Awakening the Rainmaker. I'll let Nishtha give the broader introduction about herself. So, welcome, Nishtha. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Neha. I look forward to the conversation with you.
Great. So, would you be able to just give us a quick background about yourself, your journey, what inspired you to actually write the book?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, I'm an investment banking and a strategy professional to start with. And I like growing up, I was like that quintessential good student, gold medalist through and through, and started my career in an industry which many people, swoon over the investment banking industry. And I remember, Neha, when I started out back in 2012, this term rainmaker was added to my vocabulary, which basically was referred to people who were at senior positions in the organization, and they were the ones bringing in like a lot of money, handling like big clients and all, and were basically very powerful and influential leaders, and they were like role models for youngsters like me who were starting out back then. But even back like around what 11 years back now, even then, Neha, I could see that there are not many women rainmakers around me. Like there were most of the women were either in stuck in that junior to mid roles, or some of them who were in the leadership positions were in, let's say, support departments like HR, legal, operations, etc. I didn't see many women in those powerful revenue generating roles, and that's, I think, somewhere just stuck with me. Now fast forward to 2019, I had gathered around what over 5 years of experience by then, and I had worked in India, in Singapore, with in CEOs offices and all, so I got a lot of exposure. And 2019, when I was pregnant for the first time, I was I was handling a big project, and I was like, I myself, who had so much exposure, was hesitant to talk about my pregnancy. For instance, I felt like, oh, what would people think? Will she be able to perform up to the mark? Or just, so I did a lot of reading, and I was surprised to see that there was not much written by an Indian from a very practical standpoint on how you can continue with your career journey despite your uh, personal life milestones like pregnancy, motherhood, those sort of things. And that's what motivated me to write my book Awakening the Rainmaker. And uh, and I still remember, when I started writing it, I was like, okay, I'm not trying to start a revolution by writing this book, like something, that, oh, like the women folk are bichari everywhere, or ghar chhod do, koi tumhe support nahi kar raha, organizations are not supporting, your spouses, your in-laws are not supporting. That was not the idea to write this. I wanted to write something very practical on, how you can tackle these milestones and how assertively and respectfully get the support that you need in the process. So for instance, more often than not, there has been a talk about these menstrual leaves. For instance, many organizations, startups and all have already implemented it. And even on LinkedIn, you saw, some people saying, oh, but this will make women look weaker if we ask for it. But in my book, what I try to propose is, you cannot tiptoe around your biology. You need to accept it. Yes, you get menstruation, you get pregnant, you need that extra support. But how to, not feel bogged down because of that support, or feel like you are lesser of a professional because you need that support. Those are the kind of things I address in the book. And I also interviewed some of the most powerful women in business, as per Forbes and Fortune in India. All of these were cold reach outs. So just imagine, the kind of resonance this topic has with everybody, like the likes of a Zia Modi or a Renu Sood Karnada, Meher Pudamji. I interviewed like Padma Awardee scientist, mathematician, digital influencer. So you name a field, and I included the story of a rainmaker in the book. so that no woman can feel that, oh, I cannot make it in the career of my choosing because there's no relatable story out there. So that's been my story so far.
That's really an impressive story and a journey that also resonates with us in Queen, because me and my co-founders, we were also in a similar journey where we were on a break and where we thought that there was something required for women to bounce back to careers, and that's how Queen's journey also started. So yes, we do definitely need more women like you, more influencers like you, who can actually join hands and do much more, right? So I really appreciate all the efforts that you have done, and so many good interviews that you have taken in the book, which is very impressive. So I'm very excited, and definitely, if I think before we get into the more specific topic about gender equality in workplace, if you can just share some basic tips for women in terms of what they would need to do to actually cope up with this, getting back to workplace, or being able to survive while they are going through this process of, maybe maternity, or like you said, menstrual leaves that they need to take. So maybe just a few tips on that.
I think the most important thing, Neha, here is what I even like stress upon in the book is that be open and assertive to seek any sort of support that you need from the system, be it in the house front or be it in your organization. And you will be surprised that like we are at a stage where people are actually embracing this change, where people are seeing that there is merit in building a more inclusive ecosystem, be it at home or in organizations. So you need to be open to have that conversation in the first place to get that support. I'll give you an example here. For instance, I interviewed Zia Modi in my book, for instance. She's been the most powerful woman in business in India as per Fortune for a decade now, right? And she herself has raised like three daughters. She was the daughter of our former attorney general, Soli Sorabji. So when I was interviewing her, Zia mentioned that, Nishtha, I came from such a good pedigree, education, and everything. Even when she started out as a lawyer, for instance, she said, there was so much pressure on me. People would look at me like I'm some animal in a zoo, and they would just wait for me to, do something stupid. And and she carries that experience, of course, and now she's a proponent of it, and is a change and is a change maker who's at the forefront of building that equal working ecosystem in her organization, AZB and Partners, for instance. So she mentioned, one of my senior lawyers, she was like, can I make like one of the cabins next to mine as like a nursery for my small kid? I'll bring in my nanny and my child will be there. So Zia said, I had that bespoke conversation. I said, okay, as long as you're able to manage it, if like, if this is what you need to stay put on your career path, I'll give it to you. As long as you feel, that the kid and the office, like those two things don't disturb each other, I'm fine with it. And she said, she stayed. She saw that the organization is going an extra mile for her so that she can continue with her career. Or many other interviews that I did, many organizations, they already have these policies in place or are ready to have these bespoke conversations where they're like, once you're on the maternity, how to integrate you back into the system, for instance, is gaining a lot of traction, to do it in a very structured manner, so that the woman doesn't feel out of touch or doesn't feel the pressure all of a sudden when she comes back, for instance. Or even at home, for that matter, because if you don't talk about your career at home, they'll be like, oh, this is just a hobby, it's fine, like she'll eventually give it up. So for you to get out of that, for your family even to support you, you need to present your career as like, it's something serious. It's as important as your brother, your father, your father-in-law, your husband. Like if all the men in your family can have a career, so can you. So it's very important to be vocal about these things.
So I think a lesson to learn from Zia Modi's story as well. Like she reached out and asked for the support that she needed, and it was available. So I think that's what is important also, to speak up and try to get that support system from workplace or from family. That definitely. Now, coming to the topic, right? How would you rate, I mean, or assess the current state of gender equality in workplace? What do you think it is like, and what are the things, challenges that we face, and what are the reforms that we need to make to actually make it a better place.
So I think we are at a good place. Like, we have of course made progress, but there is still a long way to go, I would say, because India is still a country where, like close to 40% women are entering the workforce, but like less than 3% reach the C-suite, for instance. In the Nifty 50 companies, which are the 50 most coveted companies in India, only there is only one woman who's a CEO in these top 50 companies. So the numbers are still, there's a lot of catching up to do, but at least there is good amount of policy change that's happening. There is good amount of talk which is happening on these topics, and it's not just limited to, the International Women's Day or the International Women's Week. Now it's like a talk all year around, and we see a lot of MNCs and even the startups which are introducing very interesting policies. Like I talked about the the menstruation leave policy, for instance. Or there is a policy which says, many companies have this policy where they're like, okay, in every month, all employees, irrespective of gender, so that, it's a playing field for all, you can take like a 1 day well-being leave. It's a no question asked leave for which you don't have to give a reason.
Right.
So a woman who may otherwise feel that, oh, my menstruation, if I take a leave every month, I'll come across as weak. You can take this 1 day leave without giving any reason, and anyone can take it. A man can take it if he needs it for any reason. So it makes a like a gender neutral playing field. So such gender neutral policies are also coming out, which is, I think, very important and helpful in making things better and moving in the right direction.
Great. In terms of from the organization's perspective, right? What are the key steps that they need to take to promote more gender equality?
So I think for organizations, Neha, the first thing is, of course, the leadership's vision and their take on the matter is very important. Like, the most organizations who are doing well when it comes to diversity and inclusion are the ones where the leader is very serious about the agenda. It's like, it's like walk the talk. If the leader is serious, it will cascade down to the whole organization much easily. Like, most of the leaders who I've interviewed in the book are the ones who are very serious about it. Like, I gave you an example of Zia Modi, for instance, or I interviewed Meher Pudamji, who's the chairperson of Thermax, and her industry is such where there are like less women because she's into that engineering manufacturing kind of a space. But there again, they're like, we run these campus programs, for instance, so that if we get young women like from the campuses, maybe they can stay longer to form like a long lasting career, and we improve the numbers in the organization in the long run. So for any organization to do well, the leader's take is very important. And the second, I would say, is of course these gender inclusive and gender neutral policies, and their implementation is very important. Like, now many organizations have introduced something known as a parental leave, where even the men can get, that paternity leave. So they're no longer like maternity and paternity, they call it parental leave, because it takes two to bring a child into the world, so it takes two to even raise a child. And so, in these things, they organizations need to also track these policies. Like, are the men who are actually becoming fathers, are they even availing this leave? And if they're not, then what is the reason? So you need to have those conversations. You need to track implementation also, and help adoption of such policies which actually contribute to gender equality. That's very important.
So, besides the maternity and the paternity leaves, are there any specific policies other than these which are effective in the workplace or are to be implemented, which maybe not all the organizations might be aware of?
So I think one of the policies which comes to my mind is also, like, for instance, this I came to know when I was, in fact, researching for my book. Like, back in, I think it was 2020 or 2021, when New Zealand had passed this bill for a bereavement leave of 3 days, like, paid 3 days leave if a couple like this suffer a miscarriage. And this was celebrated across the world. Now, I didn't know that India already has a provision of 6 weeks of paid miscarriage leave as per the Maternity Benefit Acts. And we have this provision already in place for over 50 years now. But most people don't know about it, or organizations don't implement it to the T. So it's very important that you're aware of these policies which are like sanctioned as per law, and they're implemented in the right way in the organization. So one is that. And beyond that, I feel like the maximum the instances of bias which are like high impact happens when when you're interviewing a candidate, for instance, when you may feel like, okay, are any biased questions coming to your mind when you're thinking, oh, is she going to plan a family soon, or maternity leave deni padegi, or promotion ke time pe, if you are like again second guessing, or you're just like having gender related criteria somewhere, maybe consciously or unconsciously, is playing on your mind. So, and at these instances, it's very important that organizations do like a active de-bias drive within the organization, where there are trainings or bespoke sort of conversations are there with employees, so that, or manager essential trainings, for instance, so that people are aware that there may be these biases at play, which may be at times unconscious, which they need to keep in check to really build like an inclusive working ecosystem.
So we do talk about like how women, as they advance in their careers, the funnel becomes narrower and narrower, right? So are there specific opportunities that need to be created, or besides training, any advancement programs that can be created by organizations for women to actually progress in leadership positions?
So I think the most important thing is just like sort of leaders walking the talk is most important. Also, another important thing is, you need to stress on the fact that equality does not mean dilution of quality. Like, it should not feel like when a woman gets promoted, people are like, oh, she got promoted because she's a woman. No, she got promoted because she did a good job. So that's very important that organizations do the right kind of communication around these programs, that it's not just about equality, it's about like good quality also. And also, it's like everything being equal, pick the woman. So if men were underrepresented today, I would suggest we do the same thing for them. So you need to have the right kind of communication around these policies as well, so that people don't look up to them as charity, or just that, oh, the right thing to do. Of course it's the right thing to do, but it makes an economic sense also for the organization. So organizations need to invest in the right kind of communication also around these things.
Totally, I completely agree with that. I think it's a joint effort between the organizations and the policymakers and individuals like us who also need to focus and promote this further. So,
Right.
definitely, that's something we need to work on together. In terms of strategies that can be implemented to address these unconscious biases,
Hmm.
and the stereotypes that have impact on gender inequality, what is
Hmm.
it in terms of from the organization perspective, that strategies that they need to take,
Hmm. Sorry, come again, I didn't follow that.
strategies that can be implemented by companies for these unconscious biases that happen.
So, like I mentioned, the first thing, Neha, very important is invest in like a regular de-bias drives. It's not just around the International Women's Day or the Women's Week that you do this. You should make it an year-round thing when you're de-biasing your employees through, maybe role play kind of things or interactive kind of trainings, and you make them realize that inclusion is very important. It is need of the hour, and it's not just like a woman thing, but it's like a human thing. Like, everybody needs to be do their part for it, because if you realize the challenges of your woman, like who's your colleague, you'll realize that, yeah, even my wife may also be facing those challenges, and I need to be like, like play my part. That hashtag, that he for she and him for her sort of a narrative needs to be played out in a more constructive manner across forums, I would say, rather than making it just a token thing around the Women's Day. So that's very important, these de-bias drives at regular intervals and making them more interactive.
And are
Not
there
just,
any other initiative? I'm sorry, go ahead. You were saying something.
no, no, I'm saying not just like a textbook sort of a thing, more interactive.
Definitely. And are there any other initiatives that need to be taken for enhancing diversity and inclusion in workplace and promoting more of gender equality within the organization?
So just doing these correct things, right? A, getting the communication right. B, having the right policies. C, ensuring that you're tracking the implementation of these policies. If you do these three things right, I think you're on the right path.
Uh, Great. Thank you so much in terms of sharing all these insights. Now, coming back to your book, right? If you could just give us like three key takeaway points in terms of for women audience. I think we've spoken a lot on how organizations can actually implement and all the policies. But however, from a women's perspective, on three key takeaways on what they need to do to actually be able to continue and advance in their careers.
I think three key takeaways would be: first, would of course speak up, seek support wherever you need, be assertive. Second would be don't multitask beyond a point, and you need to delegate because everybody gets 24 hours in a day. So don't feel that I can do everything. You need to learn to delegate. That's very important, both in your personal life and professional life. And third is, if you're not happy, just question the status quo. That's very important, and find solutions to solve your situation. So those would be the key takeaways.
Great. Thank you so much, Nishtha. It was lovely having you on our Queen Exchange series. And we hope to have many more sessions along with organizations to make that impact within the organizations for a gender equal workplace. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Neha. I enjoyed the conversation too.
Thank you.